everyone. Welcome to the InStyle Knitting Studio. Today, we will knit these men's socks together. They are very simple to knit. The masterclass on double-pointed needles is very detailed, so I think even a beginner can manage it. All the lessons, by the way, that you will need for knitting these socks, you will find under the video. There will also be a timing guide, where you can easily jump to the moment you need. And there's also a text format of the masterclass. For those who don't like to knit along with videos, you will also find it in the link under this video. This is a link to my website, where, by the way, there are many free text masterclasses. So go ahead, download, and knit with pleasure. I knitted the socks in size 40 to 41. They are knitted from the top down, starting with a 2x2 rib. Then we move on to stockinette stitch. Next, we knit in the round with double-pointed needles, shaping the heel. Then we move to the toe and finish with this type of tip. So, friends, gather all the necessary materials, and let's start knitting. I will be knitting with Django yarn in Sunrise. It contains 30% wool, 20% nylon, and 50% acrylic per 100 grams, 750 meters. I will knit in 3 strands. The color number is 280. My needles will be size 2.5 for the ribbing and 2.75 for the main fabric. I will also take circular needles for making the cast-on row easier. I will first cast on stitches on circular needles, then transfer them to double-pointed ones. We will also need scissors, a measuring tape, markers, and a needle with a large eye and a blunt end also. This type of pin may be useful for temporarily moving stitches, and a notebook with a pen for calculations. Before starting to knit, we always knit a sample, wash it, dry it, and calculate our knitting density. This time, we need to knit 2 samples, a ribbing of 2x2, and stockinette stitch, and calculate how many stitches and how many rows are in 1 centimeter. I explain this in more detail in my lesson. Here's the link at the top. After this, we take measurements. Here I inserted a picture to more clearly show what exactly to measure. So, here is the leg, yes. And we need to measure the circumferences of the leg above the ankle at its thinnest point. Right here is approximately the ankle, yes, on the leg, and a bitty. Above is the thinnest point on the leg, meaning the very thinnest. This circumference needs to be measured with a measuring tape. I measured, and it came out to 22 centimeters. We also need to measure the circumference of the leg. Through the heel at the instep with the measuring tape, we measure the circumference across the heel, and through the instep, right here. I measured, it came out to 31 centimeters. We also need to know the length of the foot. That is, from the beginning of the big toe to the end of the heel. Yes. But, basically, the length of the foot can be calculated. Knowing these 2 circumferences, we can calculate the length of the foot. How? We add the circumference above the ankle to the circumference of the leg through the heel at the instep. We add these 2 circumferences. Divide by 2 to get the length of the foot. That is, we can simply measure this length of the foot with a measuring tape, yes, or we can calculate it using this formula. I got 26.5 centimeters. This is for size 40 to 41. After we find the length of the foot, we multiply it by the knitting density of the ribbing, which is 1.8 in my case, and we get the number of stitches that we need to cast on initially. That is, we will start knitting the toe from the top with the ribbing. And here we have the number of stitches that we need to cast on initially. Well, you can cast on a little more, or conversely a little less, but this is approximately the formula. Very convenient to calculate. This number of stitches must be a multiple of 4. That's it. Now let's get started with knitting. I take circular needles of the same size that I will use for the ribbing. And I take a 3-ply yarn, casting on 48 stitches using a universal method. I have cast on and my yarn is just about to finish. That is, I am knitting from one ball of yarn in 3 strands. So now I will transfer all these stitches to double pointed needles size 2.5, since I have 48 stitches, and I need to distribute all the stitches onto 4 double pointed needles. I divide 48 by 4. This gives 12 stitches on each needle transferred. Now these circular needles are no longer needed. Let's continue. I did not cast on an extra stitch for the double pointed needles. I just cast on 48 stitches. And now I will knit right away in the round, with the help of the 5th needle, tightening the first stitch well. I knit 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches using classic stitches. It's very difficult to show the knit stitches now. I knit through the front loops. While knitting in the round, we always knit the knit stitches through the front loops. And I knit the purl stitch classically. Knitting can be done using the grandmother's method. Each new needle will start with 2 knit stitches. So we continue knitting in the round with a 2x2 ribbing for 7 centimeters or 25 rows. After this, we switch to stockinette stitch. I will change to size 2.75 needles and will continue knitting. Just stockinette stitch in the round, all knit stitches through the front loop. And so gradually, I will change to size 2.75 needles and will continue knitting. With this needle size, we knit 30 rows or 8 centimeters of regular stockinette stitch in the round. After this, we need to divide the work into 2 parts. I transferred them from 4 needles to 2. It resulted in 24 stitches on each side, on each needle. Yes, here is my beginning of the knitting. So, we leave this side alone for now. This will be the front part of the sock. And now, we will be knitting the back or bottom part. This section, where we have the yarn. That means we will now knit with short rows in stockinette stitch. I will start with a wrong side row. So I am slipping the edge stitch. Here, we will already have the edge stitches. I'm knitting this row with purl stitches. I knit classically. I will knit the last stitch as a purl using the grandmother method. So, I have knitted 24 stitches. Now I turn the work and start knitting the next row with knit stitches. That is, we knit stockinette stitch. I slip the edge stitch further. I knit the knit stitches through the front loop. At the end, I also knit the last one. As a purl, using the grandmother method. Again, I turn the work and start knitting a purl row. This is our 3rd row already. We slip the edge stitch, and then I knit all the stitches as classic purl stitches. Thus, I will knit 5 centimeters or 19 rows of stockinette stitch with short rows. In each row, I have 24 stitches. We have knitted everything. My first and last row was a purl row, and here I have, I think, 9 edge stitches. After this, we continue knitting this lower back part of the sock, while not touching the front yet. Here I marked it with markers. I divided this lower part into 3 sections. Moreover, the center should be wider than these on the sides. I had a total of 24 stitches here. I allocated 6 stitches to each of the side parts. And here in the center, I have 12 stitches. I have a knit row, so I knit with knit stitches. I slip the edge stitch. Next, I knit the knit stitches through the front loop. I knitted 6 stitches. Let's leave the marker for now. Next, I knit the central part with knit stitches. Oh, I have one stitch left to knit. Now I need to knit this one stitch together with the next stitch. That is, I need to make a decrease. I will remove the marker for now. This means we have knitted 11 stitches of the central part. Not 12. And we knit 12 together with the first stitch of this side part. How do we knit them together? If it's a knit row, like I have now, then we need to knit 2 stitches together purlwise through the front loop. We knit these 2 stitches together purlwise through the front loop. Everything is knitted. It turns out we decreased 1 stitch. And now we have 5 stitches left. There were 6, and now there are 5 on this needle. Yes, that's it. Next, we do not continue knitting, but turn our work. That is, we will continue knitting in short rows. Essentially, we will be knitting the central part, but gradually making decreases and capturing 1 stitch from the side. Yes, all purl stitches. So we knit purl stitches. We slip the first edge stitch. Then, we knit all the stitches purlwise up to the marker. We haven't knitted 1 stitch. Now I will also remove the marker. It's no longer needed. We will be returning that stitch to the left needle. I had 6 here, but I haven't knitted 1 yet. 1 stitch from the central part made 7 stitches. Now, I need to knit these 2 stitches together. If we are in a purl row, then we knit 2 stitches together, knitwise, through the back loop. Here, 5 stitches remain. Similarly to what we have here, we turn it around. We will continue knitting as well. So, we no longer need the markers. Now we need to knit up to this point. That is, we will leave this stitch unknitted to connect. Well, this hole here, yes, knit this stitch and this one together. Now, we slip the edge stitch. Next, we knit all stitches as knit stitches. We did not knit 1 stitch that is far from the others, from these 5 stitches. Yes, and we will now knit it together with the first one, this stitch. Since we are on a knit row, we knit 2 stitches together as purl through the front loop. And we pull it tight. Here 4 stitches remain for me. I turn the knitting around. I slip this edge stitch. Next I knit all stitches as purl stitches. I did not knit 1 stitch to these standing stitches. I need to knit it together with the first stitch from the side. Since we are on a purl row, we knit these 2 stitches together as a knit through the back loop. Here I also have 4 stitches left and here 4 stitches. Thus, we will continue knitting the central part and making decreases. Here, we take 1 stitch before this hole and 1 stitch after the hole. That is, we knit them together until all side stitches are decreased. Well, I have knitted 12 rows. Look at the heel that is already forming. It turns out I started with a knit row, and my last row was a purl row. Now I have 12 stitches on the needle. That is, we have decreased these 6 stitches at the edges. This is how it turns out. And now we will join all the knitting and continue to knit in the round. Here my thread starts, that is, now I need to knit a knit row. So, I will remove the first edge stitch, and now I will knit all these heel stitches. It turns out to be 12, including the edge stitches. I am removing the first edge stitch. Then I will knit the next stitches through the front loop. And I will also knit this last stitch through the front loop. After this, we will need to pick up stitches along this side. If we look from the inside, as I mentioned, I ended up with 9 edge stitches here. This means I will insert into 1 stitch and knit 1 stitch. From the next edge stitch, I will knit 2 stitches. That is to alternate like this. 1 stitch, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Thus, I should have 13 stitches here. Now we find the first edge stitch and pull out 1 stitch. Good, let's tighten it here. To avoid a hole, after this, we find the next edge stitch. Here it is, and we need to knit 2 stitches through it. That means to pull out 2 stitches. First, I pull out 1 stitch through the back loop. Here are the 2 loops. Yes, front and back. We have 2 half stitches. Yes, I insert the needle into the back half stitch. And I pull the working yarn through the back half stitch. Then, I grab the front half stitch. Here it is, the front, and I pull the working yarn through it as well. So, from 1 edge stitch, we pulled out 2 stitches. Next, we find the next edge stitch. Now we pull the working yarn through both half stitches. That means we get 1 stitch from the next edge stitch. Again from the edge stitch, we need to get 2. First, I insert the needle, catching the back loop of the half stitch, and pull the working yarn through. Then I catch the front loop, and also pull the working yarn through. Here it is. From 1 edge stitch, we pulled out 2 stitches. Next, again 1 stitch. We pick up both walls up to the edge stitch, and pull out the working thread, 1 stitch. Thus we will continue, alternating pulling stitches. Sometimes, 1 stitch with 1 edge stitch. Sometimes 2, I cast on 13 stitches. And now I start knitting these stitches. From the top, which we left. That is to say, we knit in a circle with knit stitches. Here we tighten well. We finish knitting the stitches up. So, I knitted 24 stitches. This is my socks top. Yes, the last stitch is also knit, not an edge stitch. And next, on this side, we need to cast on 13 stitches again, just as I showed. And here, that is to say, from 1 edge stitch, we pull out 1 stitch. Then, from the next edge stitch, we pull out 2 stitches. So we cast on 13 stitches from this side. And that's it. We have reached the beginning of our row. Now we will knit simply in a circle. And here, I will probably mark this place with a marker to see where my row starts. Further on, we will knit in a circle with knit stitches, making decreases in every second row. I will make them in even rows. That is to say, 1 row. Now I have knitted in a circle. Now, I will have the second even row. And here, I will make decreases. We will make decreases in these places. That is where the top of the sock connects to the side. Here and here. I will show you how now. So, now I immediately start knitting with knit stitches. We will not have any edge stitches now. The knit is for the front wall. Here, we pull tightly. Here I am knitting 12 stitches for the heel. With knit stitches, the heel has been knitted. The last stitch is also a knit stitch. No more edge stitches. We are knitting in the round. Yes, now we need to knit those stitches that we cast on 13. I would probably knit them twisted to have fewer holes here. That is, I start knitting with knit stitches only twisted, which seems to come out as knitting through the back wall. So I did not finish one stitch out of 13. I'm transferring it to the right needle for now. I need to knit it together with the stitch above. Here I am transferring it to this needle here. They need to be knitted together as a knit stitch tilted to the right. That is, if we are decreasing a stitch at the end of these 13 side stitches, right here, that is near the top. And here we do a decrease, then we knit 2 stitches together as a knit stitch tilted to the right through the front wall. Here we have decreased 1 stitch. Now we are knitting the stitches above with knit stitches. And here is again the top of the sock, and this is the side part. Here we again do a decrease, but now with a tilt to the left. This 1 stitch I did not finish. I am transferring it to the right. Needle. I will throw it over to this needle. So these 2 stitches need to be knitted together as a knit stitch tilted to the left. That is, we slip the first one, knit the second one knit, and then place the slipped stitch on the knitted one, pulling tightly. Now we continue knitting with knit stitches. These side stitches I'm knitting, twisted through the back wall. That's it, we have reached the beginning of the row. And now in the next row, we will simply knit all stitches as knits. I won't show it anymore. We have knitted to the beginning of the row. And by the way, there is a nuance here that the number of stitches should not change. Initially, I had 24 stitches on top and 12 on the heel. This means that as we knit, yes, we should always have 24 stitches on the needles. Due to these decreases, the number of stitches will decrease here. Here, that is on the sides, my stitches were set a bit differently on different needles. I moved them, so here I left 24 stitches, while here I had 13 left from 12. Since we decreased once, I just knitted straight with knit stitches now. And in the next row, I will decrease again. We will decrease just as I showed here, by knitting 2 stitches together, doing a knit with a right twist, that is, through the front loop. And here, 2 stitches together knit with a left twist, that is, we slip the first, knit the second, and pull the slip stitch over the knitted one. I will show you the decreases. In my 6th row, I did not knit 1 stitch. Here, I have 10 stitches left. Now I will knit this 1 stitch with the first stitch that I have here, on the top part of the sock. This is the first stitch here, the decrease we made a row back, right. So we take 1 stitch from the side and then this stitch resulting from the decrease. Here's the stitch, I moved it from the side over here to the front there, and we knit them together as a knit through the front loop. From this side we knit with a right tilt like this. That's it. This is the first stitch on top, and then we start knitting the stitches on top. There should be 24 stitches here. Taking into account those stitches where we decreased, here is the first stitch. Stitches on top, 23 stitches, and this is the 24th. I kind of slip it, and the next one needs to be knitted as a knit, right, and pull the slipped stitch over the knitted one. Here, we knit the next one as a knit. This is the first stitch from the side part, and we pull this slip stitch over the knitted one from the side part. Pulled everything, this stitch stays here in the central part on this needle. And here we should have 10 stitches left, just like on this side part, here. It turns out, as I said, our stitches are removed from the side parts. And here, the stitches remain unchanged. That is, the loop that results from the decreases remains on this needle. That's it, we knit like this in stockinette stitch, making decreases in every second row. I have knitted 12 rows. On the needle, I currently have 50 stitches, although many knit until the total number of stitches equals the original. I cast on 48 stitches, which means I decrease until there are 48 stitches left, but I left 50. We are just checking here whether we need to decrease for our instep. If the instep is a bit high, we can leave more stitches, that is, to make the toe wider. Well, here of course it's better to try it on. This is how it turns out. Here's the heel. After our decreases, we just start knitting straight. I will knit 13 centimeters with 50 stitches in each row. We just knit in the round with knit stitches. 13 centimeters, and if we consider my gauge, that will be 49 rows. Just knit the front loops. And by the way, it's better to distribute all the stitches evenly on the needle, because here I have many stitches. I have 50, which does not divide evenly by 4. It turns out I need to leave 12 on 2 needles, and 13 on 2. That is, on 2 opposite needles, the same number of stitches. Well, I knitted. And in the last row, I didn't knit a few stitches to the start of the row. The beginning of the row is right here. That is, I folded the toe like this to start decreasing the toe. I distributed the stitches this way, folding the toe like this. There were 25 stitches on 2 needles together. And here, 25 stitches, just like that. I hope you understood. So, how did I distribute the stitches? I have 12 stitches on the first needle, 13 on the second, 12 on the third, and 13 on the fourth. This means that on one side, if you take all the stitches from both needles, there are 25 stitches, and on the other side, also 25 stitches. So now, we will carefully make decreases for the toe from both sides. Thus, the length of the toe will be approximately 5 centimeters. So, here's my heel. And the beginning of the row is right here. In other words, this is my first needle. Here are these stitches. Therefore, we will make decreases on both sides. This means that in one row, there will be 4 decreases. I will decrease at the beginning of the first needle. Here, I knit 2 stitches together with a left slant. Then at the end of the second needle, I will knit 2 stitches together with a right slant. Next, at the beginning of the third needle, I will knit 2 stitches together with a left slant. And at the end of the fourth needle, I will knit 2 stitches together with a right slant. The decreases will occur in 2 stages. The first decreases will be done every other row. I am starting with the row in which I will make a decrease. Here is the beginning of my row and the first needle. So, here I will knit the first 2 stitches on the first needle together with a left slant. In order to knit them together with a left slant, I will turn them. There, I have turned them, and now I knit them together through the back loop. There, we made the first decrease. Next, we knit all the stitches as knit stitches. We move on to the second needle. Here too, we knit all the stitches as knit stitches through the front loop. we didn't finish knitting 2 stitches on the second needle. They also need to be decreased, that is, knit together as a knit stitch with a right slant, so that we have a curve with a right slant, like this. In order to knit them together with a right slant, we simply knit them together as a knit stitch through the front loop. That's it. We decreased at the end of the second needle. We move on to the third needle. Here, on the third needle, we need to knit the first 2 stitches together knitwise with the left leaning. For this, we turn them around. And knit them together knitwise through the back loop. That's it, we have made a decrease at the beginning of the third needle. Next we continue to knit all the stitches on the third needle knitwise. We move on to the fourth needle. Here we also knit all the stitches knitwise through the front loop. And on the last needle we did not knit 2 stitches. They also need to be decreased, that is, knitted together knitwise with a right leaning. Here, with a right leaning. For this, we simply knit them together through the front loop knitwise. We have done all the decreases. We knitted the first row. Here, it turns out we made a decrease right here with a left leaning. Here with a right leaning. Next, here with a left leaning, and here with a right leaning, that is. So that our stitches decrease neatly like this. That's it. We have knitted the first row with decreases. In the next row, we simply knit straight knitwise through the front loop. I knitted 1 row without decreases, and now we will also alternate. Knitting the next row with decreases, then a row without decreases. Overall, I need to knit 8 rows, 4 rows of which will have decreases, meaning I should have -16 stitches. I have knitted, and now I will move on to the second stage. Here, I will also make the same decreases, but now in every row. That is, I will now knit 5 rows with 4 decreases in each row. So overall I will decrease 20 stitches. That's it, I have completed the second stage. I have a total of 14 stitches on the needles. That is, I have transferred 7 stitches to each of the 2 needles. The remaining needle is set aside. I divided the loops in half and just pulled the thread through. I threaded it into a needle with a wide eye and a blunt tip, and now I will simply sew these 7 loops in pairs with a knitted stitch. My thread is here. It goes from the loop that is on the far needle. Therefore, I will now insert the needle into the loop that is on the near needle, which is opposite. These are the outermost loops, and this is how we will secure them. So, I am kind of coming out of this loop, from the opposite outer one. That is, we look, turning it so that it is not twisted. Here it lies beautifully, so I will come out of it. Well, I remembered for myself that I enter the loop like this from top to bottom. Yes, like this I enter, and come out again. Like this, toward myself with the needle. So now I'm coming out of this loop with this motion. That is, the needle is toward me or in this direction. From the inside, it kind of goes to the right. We pulled the thread out. Now let's move on to this outer loop. We are going back into it, and I will enter here already. Here, it looks beautiful like this. That is, I enter it kind of from top to bottom, or with a motion from right to left, like this. We secured all the outer loops. The thread is here. Therefore, now I will work on the opposite needle. I will sew these 2 loops together. Then I will sew in pairs. First, I will go into the first loop and come out with the second. Look, I am entering this loop from top to bottom, that is away from myself. I will drop it from the needle. That is, if we sewed through 1 loop twice, it can be dropped. And now the second loop. I come out of it, that is, with the needle moving toward myself. All these 2 loops have been stitched. We are not dropping this second one from the needle yet, because we have pulled the thread through it once and are moving to the opposite one. Now we are going to sew these 2 loops. The same thing. First we enter the loop. Here it is, our loop. We kind of enter it like this. We enter. The thread should always be pulled to the right like this. So we have entered. We can drop it from that needle. And now we need to come out from the next one. That is, here it is like this. It lies correctly like this, so it is not crossed, and we kind of exit it with the needle's movement away from ourselves. So we move on to these 2 loops. We enter the first loop with a movement away from ourselves, and drop it from the needle. And from the second one we exit with the needle's movement towards ourselves. We move to the opposite side. First, we enter here with the needle's movement towards ourselves and drop it from the needle. And from the second loop, we exit with the needle's movement away from ourselves. Next, we again transition to this needle. Here we enter this loop with a movement away from ourselves and drop it, and from the next loop, we exit with the needle's movement towards ourselves. We do not drop it and move to this needle. First, we enter the loop like this, entering with the needle's movement towards ourselves. And then we drop it, and then exit from the next loop with the needle's movement away from ourselves. We move to this side. First we enter. Here is our loop. We enter it with the needle's movement away from ourselves and drop it from the needle. We exit from the next loop. That is, we need to bring the needle towards ourselves, and here. Conversely, meaning, in the opposite direction, we insert the needle. Here we need to enter the loop like this. That is, with movements of the needle towards ourselves. And we drop it from the needle. And from the next loop, we exit. We exit from it with needle movements away from ourselves. Now we have a seam forming. We move to these two needles. We enter from top to bottom, with needle movements away from ourselves and we drop it from the needle. From the next one, we exit with the needle movement towards ourselves. Do not drop it. We move to the opposite one. The needle. We enter the loop like this with the needle movements towards ourselves. The thread should go under the needles and we drop this one. The loop, and then from the next one, we exit with needle movements away from ourselves. We move to the nearer needle. We enter with needle movements away from ourselves and drop it. We exit from the next loop. The needle towards ourselves, do not drop it yet. We move to that side, the same thing. Entering the loop with the needle movement towards ourselves. Like this, and we drop this loop. And exiting with needle movements away from ourselves, we have 2 loops left. There is our thread coming from the far needle. We now enter the needle in this loop. I will insert the needle like this, moving away from myself. So, as if entering the loop and dropping it from the needle, and here with the movement towards myself, also entering the loop and dropping it from the second needle. That's it, we have sewn with a knit stitch. Here it is almost invisible. It looks like these knit stripes continue. Now we bring our thread to the wrong side and hide it. After washing, it will all look nicer, of course. We hide all the ends. We remove all the threads. Markers. Look at what a seam we get at the place where we made the decreases. Here, 2 stripes are formed. In principle, between the decreases one could insert a knit stitch, that is, just knit 1 knit stitch after the first decrease and continue to the second. That is, after making the first decrease, knit 1 knit stitch, and then make the next decrease. But I did not do it that way. I immediately made the decrease and then the next decrease. You could have knitted 1 front or 2, some do it that way. I've decreases nearby. This is the kind of toe that turned out. We also knit the second sock, but this is how the socks turned out. They just need to be washed and worn with pleasure. I hope everything worked out for you. If you have any questions left, ask in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and see you in my next workshop. Bye everyone.